finally, we're going to end with the great Omowale Malcolm X and the program of the Organization of Afro-American Unity and how they were addressing issues of identity and the African liberation fight. Establishment. Having stated our determination, now bear in mind, this constitution, or well, it's not quite constitution, it was the program and also known as the aims and objective of the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Yeah. A lot of history that's there that I won't go into, except to say that this was modeled after the Organization of African Unity on the continent, because he was seeking to join the liberation fight on the continent and unify Africans throughout the Americas now, not just in the United States of America, but throughout the Americas, yeah, to fight for our liberation and join our brothers and sisters in that liberation fight. Okay. Leading members of the Organization Afro-American Unity are Omowale Malcolm X, importantly his sister Ella Collins. Yeah, not enough of us know about Ella Collins, but she is the big sister of Omowale Malcolm X, his biggest supporter, and one of the leading members. In fact, when he was assassinated, she actually took over the leadership of the Organization of Afro-American Unity. The person, however, responsible for actually penning the aims and objective is the great and illustrious historian Baba John Henrik Clark. So these words were written by Baba John Henrik Clark as a result of the consultations and the decisions that were made by the leadership of the OAAU. Establishment. Having stated our determination, confidence and resolve, the Organization of Afro-American Unity is hereby established on the 15th day of February 1965. In the city of New York. Upon its establishment, the Afro-American people will launch a cultural revolution, which will provide the means for restoring our identity, that we might rejoin our brothers and sisters on the African continent culturally, psychologically, economically, and share with them the sweet fruits of freedom from oppression and independence of racist governments. In order under the point of restoration, yeah, in order to enslave the African, it was necessary for our enslavers to completely sever our communication with the African continent and the Africans that remained there. In order to free ourselves from the oppression of our enslavers, then, it is absolutely necessary for the Afro-American to restore communications with Africa. We must begin to re-educate ourselves and become alert listeners in order to learn as much as we can about the progress of our motherland, Africa. We must correct in our minds the distorted image that our enslaver has portrayed to us of Africa, that he might discourage us from establishing communications with her and thus obtain freedom from oppression. Under the point of reorientation, Malcolm X, you know, the way how I love this man, yeah, and the way how I love what he was doing, what he was leaving us, yeah, before he was assassinated. And this makes you, it always leaves me in the state of wonder as to what would have happened had he lived, or had the organization had a stronger foundation at the point at which he was assassinated. But that's another subject for another time. In order to keep the Afro-American enslaved, it was necessary to limit our thinking to the shores of America, to prevent us from identifying our problems with the problems of other people of African origin. This made us consider ourselves an isolated minority without allies anywhere. Yeah, I'm not breaking all this down, you know, I'm hoping that you're actually listening and identifying the points of relevance as to how this relates to today. Yeah, the conversations that we're having today, the debates that are going on today, the attacks against Pan-Africanism and African identity that are taking place today. Okay, and when I open up the lines, you can share your perceptions. The Organization of Afro-American Unity will develop in the Afro-American people a keen awareness of our relationship with the world at large, and clarify our roles, rights, and responsibilities as human beings. We can accomplish this goal by becoming well-informed concerning world affairs and understanding that our struggle is part of a larger world struggle of oppressed peoples against all forms of oppression. We must change the thinking of the Afro-American by liberating our minds through the study of philosophies and psychologies, cultures and languages that did not come from our racist oppressors. Under national concerns, general terminologies, he goes into they go into an explanation of breaking down the term Negro and why it's deficient. And so at the end of this, they affirm the identities that they are affirming, yeah, as Africans in America and throughout the Americas. He says, we accept the use of the term Afro-American, African, and Black man in reference to persons of African heritage. To every other part of mankind goes this measure of just respect. We do not desire more, nor shall we accept less. This is the African self-defining. Nobody now gonna tell we, oh, we for define. Yeah. And I should also clarify that the term Afro-American, in one of his last interviews in 1965, he's interviewed by a group of Congolese students, yeah, and he gives, and I played this actually at the beginning of the video today, the session today. For those who missed it, he's explaining that the fact that the term Afro-American, and he does also use the term African-American, does not just relate to Africans in the United States of America. He's referring to Africans throughout the Americas, yeah, so all the continent of North America, yeah, which is Canada, United States, Mexico, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. But he also goes on to explain that he's also referring to Africans in Europe, because many of the Africans in Europe by this time are migrating from the Americas, yeah. So he actually forms a branch of the Organization of Afro-American Unity in France, for example, and attempts to do so in the UK when he travels here also. Okay, all right. Big up my brother from Belize in the house. You don't know. One of the strongholds of the Garvey movement, Belize. I mean, right. Couple more slides. Worldwide concern. The time is past due. You know, I'm gonna skip this slide for the sake of time. Yeah. No, in fact, let me just read the last part. Our relatives who are in the majority or in their own country have found it very difficult to gain independence from a minority. It is that much more difficult for Afro-Americans who are a minority away from the motherland and still oppressed by those who encourage the crushing of our African identity. So for the Africans, the Black nationalist Africans who are organizing this, they are seeing the affirmation of an African identity as one of the tools, one of the fundamental tools. They're reinforcing what Martin Delaney was saying almost a century prior about affirming original identity, yes, as a tool for waging a liberation fight. And because they're seeing it as the American government establishment deliberately tries to crush the affirmation of an African identity, so they're affirming one in relation to liberation. Last slide. This is not in the program now. This is a quote taken from that interview that I was referring to earlier. He's explaining the impact that the independence movement on the African continent is having on Africans throughout the world, and the impact of a positive image of Africa and what that does in terms of inspiring Africans to organize among each other. He says, as that race pride develops, it has a tendency to make us want to unite together and work together. And your Western imperialists and colonialists consider this to be a great threat. More a threat than communism or Marxism or socialism or anything else. Africanism is what they consider to be the real threat. So basically, kings and queens, what I've done, yeah, for longer than I expected to, is just given over 100 years, yeah, of the affirmation of an African identity as self-defined by African people as an act of liberation, political, economic, cultural, and spiritual ascendancy, yeah, as opposed to this self-aggrandizement, feel-good factor, and utopian, unrealistic dreaming. I hope I have made the case very, very clear. I hope I have made the case unequivocally, and I do hope that ones and ones will be inspired to join me in the conversation right about now.